Here's a story, or let's call it information, about the things I've learnt as a young man coming over to pursue rugby league as a career, and the things I've learnt with my son as he's about to make his venture into the NRL. If you're new to my channel, a quick background is I moved over about 18 years ago to pursue rugby league. More recently, been coaching, and my son is just going into his first full-time season in the NRL with the Dolphins. And the things that I've learned from me as the person pursuing it, and now as a dad watching my son do the same thing, there's a lot of things that I didn't know that I do now. I'm just at Ormo, by the way. It's actually the first club I ever coached at. It was under 12s, my son. I coached him at under 12s here at Ormo. So, thought it was only fitting that I come down and tell the story down here. So if you haven't seen much of my content, just in short, my son, he's 18 now. He's just moved into a full-time contract with the NRL Dolphins. And obviously, once upon a time, that was my dream. It's beautiful watching him pursue it. So there's a lot of things that I've been able to pick up along the way. Been pretty much there from the start of his journey, right through to where he is right now. And I've seen everything happen. I've been part of all negotiations, and I've seen things come and I've seen things go. And I've watched on, right in there as a coach and a dad, and also out here as a spectator as well. And there's a lot of stuff that I've kind of come to realize and understand. So I'm from Whakatane, a lot of talented people there. Rugby, touch, everything, talented. And obviously you've heard the name Benji Marshall. One of the boys managed to break through, and he's a legend of the game. I moved to Hamilton. So my last year, I played for the Hamilton City Tigers. This is going back ages, 2000 and mid-2000s, 2008 maybe. We played Tūranga Waiwai in the finals. Tough competition. That following year, I decided to, or me and the wifey decided to come over and I'll pursue the rugby league. Have a crack over in Sydney. There was a show on TV called Ngāti NRL. And I came across to have a crack at Asquith. Mark Horo was the coach. So I came over and I caught up with Mark Horo, and he took me under his wing, I suppose you could say. And he used to pick me up and he'd drive us to training at Asquith, and that's where they used to film the Ngāti NRL. They used to follow a few of the boys inside the Ngāti NRL team. And the Jim Beam Cup it was called at that time. It's called the Jim Beam Cup. I was 25, I might have been 26 years old. My first time in Australia. I didn't know about a system. I didn't really understand really what it was. My thoughts were, if you're good enough, you're good enough. That's what I used to think. In some respect, that's true. But when you're 26 years old, it's not necessarily true. If you're good enough, you're not necessarily good enough, if that makes sense. And I'll explain why a little bit later. I played Asquith that first year. And what I did for the next sort of 4 to 5 years, I jumped around to heaps of different clubs. I wasn't loyal to any club. I was just seeking a bigger contract. I was looking for faster opportunities. That's what I kept doing. I didn't understand. So if we rewind back to Asquith, I used to turn up to trainings and would train Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It was a lot of training. It was quite intensive, a lot more intense than what I had experienced in New Zealand. And mind you, I'm coming across to Australia after, losing a grand final. I personally thought that I had come off a pretty good year. I had a pretty good year. So I'm pretty high and mighty, I'm thinking, I'm sure I'm good enough to at least get in that sort of upper echelon of player. That's what I'm thinking. Meanwhile, I'm training with Asquith, and it's a big pre-season. And then you get closer to the season, you start doing trials. And all of a sudden, there's these youngsters starting to turn up during the games. I turn up to play the trial games. Like, who are these kids? There's some boys are turning up with Parramatta Eels gears and Sharks gears. And I was like, what are these kids? They haven't been here all pre-season. I didn't understand what it was. But anyway, you go about your business. And it's funny too, Mark used to pick me up. Mark Horo used to pick me up. And we used to go to his house first. And there was heaps of boys at his house, heaps of youngsters. Justin Horo, he would have been one of them. And a lot of that sort of Parramatta Eel, the young, they must have been only, 16, 17. There was heaps of them, maybe 6, 7, 8 of them staying in his house. And I always used to think to myself, I'm better, they're only youngsters, these kids. They're only young. Like, surely if there's a contract to be had, or surely if there's teams to be picked, they'll pick me because I'm older, I've got more experience. And that's what I used to think. That's what I thought. And then, as the season goes by, you start seeing these youngsters in these systems. I'm still waiting for that call-up, I'm still waiting for the big call-up. So I jump to another club and see if I can sort of make some inroads here, and then I do it again. And over the course of like 6 years in Sydney, I jumped around to a few different clubs. not really understanding what a system was back then. I didn't know what a system really was or what it really meant. And by the time I did come to understand what a system was, it was too late. I had bounced around to too many clubs. I wasn't really loyal to any club, and I didn't have any substance behind me. I had to keep restarting every time I jumped into a new club. You do what you do, and then I kind of got a little bit older and I lost the passion for it and moved to Queensland. So during those years, those 5 or 6 years that I was playing there, I did start to understand there was a system and it's good to be in it. But I still didn't really sort of grasp the depths of it really. I still had this thing in my mind, if I'm good enough, I'm good enough. Like, if I'm better than that 18-year-old, and I'm faster than, you surely would want to pick me. But what I've sort of come to realize is time and resources. And I understand this as a coach, and now I understand this as a dad watching my son go through the system. It's not so much always about who the best players are at any particular time. It's the time and resources that a club has put into a player. Fast forward a few years, my son starts playing here at Ormo. Back when my son was 12, clubs are looking. So my son played in the South Coast team and missed out on Queensland that year. And then 13s, 14s is where it starts getting kind of, where they're really starting to look, because, they're starting to approach and tap you on the shoulder. Some boys earlier, but I think in general it's probably about 13, 14 years old, because 15 you can actually get signed. So they're starting to pick them out at 14 years old, chucking them in the systems. I'll cut out all the middle bit, go back and look at some of my other vlogs about what happened with my son. He had an injury and a lot of stuff happened in between that time. But I'm still coaching, so I'm seeing what's going on. I'm looking in and I'm starting to really understand the system and what it means. I'm looking at some of these boys that are better than some of those boys and wondering why they're not getting in. My son comes back from injury. He kicks ass the year that he comes back. I think it was under 15s. Still no clubs, no NRL clubs were really interested in him. And I sort of did start to really understand what it truly means is time and resources that a club puts into certain players. It's not easy just to drop those players and put another player in, because you spend time with them, you've built them up, you've trusted the process from the start, and you don't want another, or they don't want another club latching on to development that you've already done. Now, there was one particular year, it was under 14s. He had a standout year. He got player of the match in the grand final that they won as the captain. He didn't get approached from any clubs. No one was interested. So this would have been about October. They had all the grand finals and stuff. About November, they start picking teams to have runs against you. Titans pick a team and Broncos pick a little under 14s team just to have a run against each other. Or under 15s team. And they want to start getting some boys in the systems. Some of the boys that I had seen in there were boys that were playing in the second division of his competition. He was in the first division, he had just been the captain, and he won the grand final. Yet I'm seeing these boys that are in the second division making these Titans teams and Broncos teams. I suppose there's a little bit of politics to it, to a little extent. I don't like to blame it too much on politics. There's always a little bit of who you know, and you're going to find that everywhere. But what I did soon realize was those couple of boys had been earmarked from a little bit younger, 13 years old. They had already been going down and having little trainings with the Titans and the Broncos. I didn't see it from the outside. Why are those boys getting picked? They're in second division. My son just won this. He just won that. He was the captain. I didn't understand that they had actually been looking after them from a little bit younger, and that's why they're in the system there. So the key is to try and get your son or daughter or yourself into the system somehow, and then you can prove yourself that way, because the older you get, the less time that the clubs have to work with you. I moved over when I was 26 years old, I think it was, thinking that if I was good enough, because I believed I was good enough, wondering where's the big sort of 6-figure contract, where are these? They didn't even know who I am. And then once they did start to kind of find out who I was, I'm too old. The time that it'll take for them to get me to a point where I could potentially play NRL, and how long am I going to be there for? Where they've got these young kids that they've been nurturing through from this age. They understand the system, and they've been able to watch their progress right through to a certain point. That's what I didn't get. I bet you all of us right now know that there's a kid that's doing well in the system and another kid that is better than him, but he's not. It's not necessarily that he's better than him, it's just he's been in the system He's been in the system long enough that the club have put time and resources behind them, and they don't want that to go to waste. So they will just keep pouring it in until it gets to a certain point where they think, whatever might happen from that point on, contracts, negotiations, and whatever it might be. They're going to push this kid as much as they can before they go and just grab another random kid of the same age. So we were fortunate with my son that it was about 16, even though he had missed out on that system from, everyone around him was getting all the support, exposure to the facilities, the coaches. My son didn't get it. I think it was about 16. Yeah, it was 16 when he just come out and had a killer Cyril Connell year that they all come knocking. And at that stage, he's still young enough. He's still young enough for them to put time and resources behind him. The opposite of me. What you also got to understand is these clubs are multi-million dollar, billion-dollar clubs. You have to be good, a good person, because the last thing they want to be doing is putting their time, money, and effort into someone that's going to bring a lot of drama to the club. I've seen a lot of young boys that they're just been booted out of the system because attitude, commitment to training, their mental capacity to be able to train wasn't enough. It wasn't going to be there. And you spot that as a coach. I can spot that in a player. You need to be a good person off the field, because I'm telling you right now, selectors, clubs, they look at everything you do. If they're coming to watch your team because there's a few good players in your team and you're in that team, they'll sit somewhere hidden away and they'll watch everything. They'll watch how you warm up. They'll watch how you present yourself. Are you just dropping rubbish on the ground? All that sort of stuff. Is he jumping up behind people and whacking them in the back of the head? Is he disruptive in the warm-ups? Does he sit and do nothing? You get those players that just there's a warm-up and they'll be just sitting over there stretching by themselves. They look at that. They'll look at that. And then if you sort of fit the mold and they think, he's actually a good kid. He does everything. He's asking questions. Let's put him in our system. Well, that's the first step there. You could see the greatest player, 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, scoring 3 tries a game, 80-meter tries. And all the parents are sitting up in the grandstand and they're watching this kid, and he goes from there and he runs across there, and everyone's like, he's going to be great. Maybe so. But when it gets to the hard stuff, which I've really come to realize as I sit and watch my son train in the Dolphins, it's the training that's really the difference. You could be scoring 5 tries a game at 16 years old. 17 years old, 18-year-old, everyone starts to catch up in physicality and mental. And now when you start to get out and do those Broncos, and then you have to do Malcolms, and then you have to get up and do another Bronco, and then you got coat hangers, and the old kid that was doing getting 6 tries a game can't keep up with that sort of stuff, they won't last. And that's just the honest truth of it. I've seen it personally for myself. I've coached those kids myself. I've seen them come up and then I'm seeing them fall down because the training required to reach the next level is difficult that only a few can do. I remember my first season here in Australia, in Sydney, was with the Asquith Magpies. It was the middle of summer and I hadn't been to Aussie before, and it was a typical Aussie summer. We drove up to the entrance, which was up north, one of the beaches, and we did some sand. It was a sand dunes, a 50-meter sand dune. We came down, we had a bit of a sip, and then we had to link arms with 4 other players and then just go. I remember it was probably one of the most grueling, probably one of the worst. Is worst the right word? It's definitely the most difficult training that I had ever done. That's what you got to be ready for. I didn't even think, when I look back on it, I didn't even think mentally I was even anywhere near prepared for the type of training that was required to reach the level that I wanted to reach. I just thought I'm mean. When I started to think my first off-season, do I have to do this again? And yes, we had to do it again. The next weekend we went back up to the entrance, did the same thing. We're running up and down the beach 6 kilometers to come back and run up a sand dune. And I don't think I was mentally prepared to even reach the NRL level. I didn't think that's what was required, to be totally honest. I didn't know that's what you had to do. I thought if you were just mean, you were mean. I can step that dude, and coming from Whakatane, we're all steppers. We're all mean, ball skills, we all got that. There's a lot of flair in Whakatane, Rātoki, Waimana, Kawerau, Texas. Everyone's got that flair around us, all around us. We play against each other. Everyone that plays against each other, we sharpen steel, as they say, So everyone's sharp. Everyone's skills are sharp. And I used to come over here thinking, yeah, there's like 30 of us that can make it in the NRL, until I realised the training that's required. And I didn't think everyone has got the mental capacity to be able to reach the NRL. So it's hard for me to say because it's me, but I didn't even think I would have been able to do it consistently on and off. I just wasn't. I think I could have trained myself up to it, but at the age that I was, I think I was far too gone to be able to develop myself to be able to do that. You know, if I had been doing it from 14 years old, where it's just normal, 15, 16, 17, by the time you get to 18 years old, like my son, you just kind of like, oh, that's just what we do. Your body's just conditioned to be able to do it. But I was 26 years old, running up sand dunes, holding onto people's arms, we're falling, there's people are spewing on each other's arms, and you know, there's always one fit dude who's trying to drag everyone else up, and then you're like in the middle, so you got to drag this dude, you're getting pulled and dragging, and like, it's like, fuck. But anyway, you know, I rumbled through a few seasons there, and I remember one time we were training, and it was shirts, no shirts. So I was on no shirts, and we were playing a sort of like a two-handed touch. It was at the back end of training, and Mark goes, "Oh, Ronnie, you should put your shirt on, haha." And I did the fingers, I did the fingers to me, cheeky bastard, you know, just stuff like that. And it's like, hey, get on the line. It's like, oh fuck, hey, Ronnie did the fingers, get on the line. 2,100 meter sprints at the end of training because of me. Hey, and mind you, I'm new to the club too. You know, I've been there at that stage for about 4 weeks, so I'm just getting to know everyone there, and I just ended up getting us 2,100 meter sprints because I did the fingers to the coach. So yeah, that's sort of maybe another mental thing, just a little thing that stuck with me. You know, don't disrespect the coaches. Hell no, especially Mark. He's been around that level for a long time. He shouldn't be doing that sort of shit to the coach. You know, I just didn't understand. You know, but I know a little bit more relaxed in New Zealand, but over here it's very professional, right down through the grades. But you need to find yourself in a system where they pour their resources into you, and they can watch you, they can monitor you, they can mold you into what they want as a player. You know, with my son, we talk to the Dolphins, and they talk about the positions they want him to play, the weight that they want him to play at certain positions. It's so professional these days that everything is broken down into little increments. This is what your testing needs to be. This is how much supplements you need to be taking, how much sleep you need to be getting. So yeah, you can be the greatest player, but there's a lot more that you need. You have to be able to do the trainings because the coaches talk. Now, I'm only talking on my experience from what I experienced myself as a player coming over here in my mid-20s to pursue that goal. And now watching my son come from a 12-year-old when I started coaching him right through to training full-time with the Dolphins at the moment. That's the sort of stuff I've seen. And maybe some other little bit of advice. If you are really looking to make it in the NRL, maybe pick a player that you see yourself being like. Maybe you're a similar shape, or you play a similar position, or you've got a similar style of game. Look at that player, figure out what they do well, and train that. And then add a couple of extra elements to your own game. You know, bring your own little flair. But because obviously, those players are in there for a reason. They're there because they're doing something that is required to be at that level of NRL. So watch them, whoever it might be. What do they do? Oh, he does that. Okay, I'm gonna start practicing to do that too, and then I'll bring my own little element to it as well. Another thing too, managers, you can do it on your own. You definitely can do it on your own. I know some people whose families are doing it themselves. Me personally, I don't know the ins and outs of the game, that part of the business well enough, and I don't think I'm cutthroat enough to be able to navigate that world. If you're like me and you struggle to, you can't navigate that sort of business world, I definitely would suggest getting a manager. You know what they are good for. I know there's a lot of bad things that get said about managers, some rightfully so, I'm not too sure. They have the contacts that maybe you don't. They know the clubs, they know the coaches, they know the people, they know what clubs are looking for what. They know the numbers of each club, who's searching for a second row, who's searching for a centre. They know all that stuff, or the better ones do anyway. If you think you can navigate it on your own, man, much power to you, good luck to you. But for some of those out there, I would suggest a manager, because they just know how to navigate that world that some of us, especially us Polynesians, we or the ones that I know and my family, we tend to get pushed around in business terms a little bit. A lot of trust, we hold a lot of trust, so we tend to just believe a lot of stuff, and you can really get caught up in that world, I suppose, if you're not too savvy with that sort of world. So yeah, maybe look at getting a manager, and then they can push you into these systems. They can sort of tap the clubs on the shoulder and, hey, you want to check out my boy, check him in your system. And then, that's another way you can get into those things. So yeah, I'm going to start vlogging my son's journey as he's gone up to Redcliffe and he's training full time. I'm going to get around because, once upon a time, that's what I wanted to do. So I'm still real keen just to see how hard it really is. And I'll try and, get around the system as much as I can and just sort of get right in amongst it and just see, what sort of training. He rings me every day, so he lets me know everything, and it sounds brutal. It sounds brutal, but I want to see it. I want to see the struggle and the sweat and the tears, the brutality of the training that they're doing. He loves it. He wants it, and he stands up and faces it head on. And I think that's the mentality that's required for a young player to reach the highest levels. Is you need to have that, because ask yourself, are you able to do the most horrid training day in, day out, day in, day out, and then again, and then again, and then again? Yeah, not everyone can. Like, if you really want to go deep down this pathway, make sure you're ready over here, because your muscles and your physicality can only take you so far. At some stage, you're going to need to be muscly up here. Good luck. If you have any questions, me and my son are still young in this scene. I've got a couple of good mates of mine whose kids are 5 and 6 years in the NRL, and I'll be picking their brains as well and seeing how it is. But if you have any questions or any ideas, you want to hear about something else, let me know, because I'll be following this journey with my son. I consider this my journey too. It's easy for me because I can be part of it and not have to do the hard work. I'm just documenting it. So like I said, feel free to hit me back if you have any things you want me to chat about. Much love. Thanks for checking out my vlogs, and we'll catch up on the next one. We moved to Queensland from Sydney after I finished playing. My son started playing. He went to the Parkwood Sharks. Then we moved to Coomera. He played for the Coomera Cutters. And then we ended up settling in Ormo, and he played for the Shearers for sort of 5 years. And we won our under-14s final on this field. I remember back when I was coaching over here. This clubhouse is only a couple of years new. This wasn't even here back when I started coaching around here. It was just all the grass through there. My wife played for the Ormo Shearers women too. And I was on the coaching staff actually for the Ormo Shearers women for 6 years. Would you believe? Yeah, we had a lot of good times on this field as well. A couple of run it straight challenges just in over here.
Are you ready? Oh, Kissy!
Got fond memories of these times. Kalani was my first student, I guess. My first official student, and we're still learning. We're still learning as we go. We're still figuring it out. He's obviously right in amongst it, and I'm just learning as we go. I'm picking up things as we go along. I'm figuring out what works and what doesn't. Whether he makes it or not, time will tell. He's definitely got the mental capacity to succeed. Obviously got the physical capacity to succeed, but it takes more than that. There's a little bit of luck involved and all that sort of stuff, but as time goes on, I certainly hope I'll be making a vlog about him making his NRL debut. That'll probably be my most precious content moment, I reckon.